Welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 128. Welcome, Molly, Emily, Surrey, and all those people out there in TV land. Remember those? What was that? Who was this at that? All the little TV shows. Captain Kangaroo.
Uncle Bob.
Uncle Bob. Uncle Bob. So this one, yes, this one is also going to go back. So this we talked the titled this to class, you know, somewhere over the rainbow, right? Actually looked up the lyrics. I was really I love that. I like that song. Uh, where is it? Uh, I think it fits because you know, of course, in the Noah, the end of the story is
With the dubs.
right. Yes,
Bluebirds.
yeah. Yes,
AKA.
somewhere over the rainbow, way up high. There's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, eyes are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and all right. Wake up where the clouds are far behind me. You know, I think the song somebody Jewish must have read it, or somebody who read the Bible, you know, because it's all clouds and dreams and rain and troubles and you know, and that was the generation of the flood. The question was why? What happened there? What went wrong? And we're going to try and understand that because in the same parsha at the very end we have another destruction going on. It's the Tower of Babel. And there it's even more complicated to try and understand what did they do wrong? They just wanted to make a tower. It says they just made a tower. They all were united. They all spoke one language. They all were working together. They all were living in one place, a nice kind of community thing. And they God said, you know, this can't go on. I got to destroy. I got to confuse their languages, scatter them throughout the world. I mean, if they do this, then what's going to be? So we try, you know, so many commentators have to struggle to try and understand what was the fault there. And I think it's really about this idea of ideal utopian societies. We want that. We like that ideal utopian societies. And in a certain sense, the whole story of Noah has to come before the story of Abraham and the Jewish people to show you what was missing in the picture. And then we know what's missing in the picture. Then we'll understand what our role is and our role to consume it. Because they were. You'll see, they were very sincere. They were trying to do their best as best as they understood it. So, what was the wrong with the generation of the flood? That one seems more obvious. It says that the world was filled with violence. People were stealing. They were killing each other. They were stealing each other's wives. Basically, it was a society of rampant individualism, capitalism. If you want to put it in political terms, we're in the political season. It was just like every person out for themselves, and what's good for me is good no matter what, and I don't even care if it hurts you or anybody else. So that was basically the idea of that was going on at that time. People were very strong, very capable. Shlamish Yudish, want to fill me in? You read the Medrash. What did they say about them? The generation before the flood. They were, how capable they were, everything they would plant and something would grow immediately.
Everything was simple for
Everything
them.
was easy.
Life was, they lived long, they didn't get ill. They if they planted something, it grew enough for 30 years, they could just collect it with ease. It was not, there was a time of tremendous capability, and the earth was very generous too.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So And when things are too good, they sort of forgot about God, and they forgot about morality. They forgot about what they had to do, and they just said, hey, this is you know, oh,
Also, this is one reason why this is one reason why carbon dating has a major flaw when they figure out the age of the Earth. It has a major flaw because it assumes, first of all, any scientist knows that when you extrapolate into the future, it's very dangerous. But when you extrapolate into the past, it's even more dangerous. And carbon dating is based on the world being like it is now, going back in time, but based on the world like it is now. But the Torah tells us that the entire world changed dramatically during the flood, that everything became weaker after the flood. The air became weaker, the soil became weaker, the water everything became weaker. So carbon dating, which dates the Earth as millions of years old, is based on the fallacy that the Earth, that the air that is now, that everything that is now this is the way it was. And the Torah says adamantly it was not that way. Go ahead.
Yeah, as a scientist, you have to, the whole real science, true science, is always about reproducible results. You can't reproduce results if you don't know what the thing was and how things were in the past. So if the breakdown of carbon 14 into carbon 12 rates are the same as today, then yeah, carbon dating would work. But if the breakdown rate is different in the past, which you could never know because you can't conduct any experiments in a lab to tell you that, then all your assumptions are false. So and so you're hypothesizing a guess that you can't prove, which is that the breakdown rates of carbon 14 to 12 was always the same. And we're told that things changed dramatically. What would it be dramatically? So when God said he's making a flood, why did he have to bring a flood? So that's an important point to bring. And why did he have Noah make an ark? And what was the whole point of that? So basically, God was telling him, the way, two important lessons in our practical life, in our daily lives. One is that it wasn't for destruction. It wasn't for destruction, as my wife was saying. Actually, as we know, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. The rabbis point out, Hasidic rabbis point out in Likutei Torah, that 40 days, 40 is an interesting number. That's how much the size of a mikveh has to be. 40 for water, 40 says of the mikveh, 40 in what? It meant that God was basically purifying the world. The world was too sharp-edged. It was too divisive. Everything had its own identity. That's why everybody was so defensive of their own identity and their own individuality. Nobody cared about anybody else because, Kabbalistically speaking, mystically speaking, it was a world of separations, or a world of tohu, which meant that was that everything's identity conflicted with something else. If I am going to be me, you have to be less of you. Everything had to be that way. And when every ingredient is very separate from each other, you can't make a cake. So what do you do to make a cake? You got to add water. You got to soften things up. You got to mush it up. If you want the ingredients to go together and so forth, you can't have it all dry. So you add water. So basically what God was doing was returning the world back to its original state, which was all water. There was no separation of land and water, back to its original unity again, so forth, and recreating the world in a new form, which is softened, which is more permeable to godliness. In other words, the problem of the first generation was God had made a big division between the heavens and the earth. As remember, on the second day of creation, God created the heavens, and he created a rakia, a separation between the heavens, the waters above and below, meaning that it was completely impermeable to godliness. And ever since Noah, there's been an interesting change in the world. You never have people, nations generally, who just say, we just want to be bad for bad's sake. They always have to have some sort of an excuse, saying we're really doing this for moral reasons. I mean, even you hear Russia today, and they start giving their excuses, and they're saying they're doing something. I listen to these guys, who are going to the front in Russia, and they say, well, I'm going to defend the fatherland. I know a lot of people are leaving, but, it is our country, and we have to defend it. And, it's like, what? But you have to at least have some sort of figment, a fig leaf of an excuse that you're doing something good. The Iranians, they think, the Muslims, they are actually creating the world over the way that the Prophet Muhammad wanted to do it. Okay, it's a corruption of the whole everything, but there's always nothing is completely separate anymore. There's no complete evil versus good. It's always like disguised in some way that we're improving the world. I mean, even Yamach Shmuel Hitler's, was saying, that this Jewish morality is killing the world. I'm doing something good, letting people free, do what they want to do. It's there. It's always disguised in some sort of way, and that shows you that there was a change in the world. That there is some bit of an opening there. That you have to, in some way, you have to recognize. You know what? The only real reason to do something is a moral reason. And that's an interesting point. That's an interesting change in the world that is post the antediluvian, no, post-diluvian. Post-diluvian world. There we go. Antediluvian is the pre-diluvian world. The post-diluvian world is that there has to be everything. People are open in some way. They have to have some sort of a moral justification for why they're doing it this way. We're taking people's rights away. The Japanese during World War II, and putting them in concentration camps, but it's for a good reason. It's a good reason. Okay, well, maybe not such a good reason, but you're pretending, at least you're disguising it as a good reason that you're doing something good. So that is the change. That's Noah's situation. So the Noah story is the story of extreme, what happens when a society goes too far extreme to one degree, the needle goes too far to one side. The individual is everything, and society is nothing. Comes along the generation of Bavel, and they said,
9, 7, 8, 4, 4, 0, 9.
Oh, they say. Okay. So and they say we're going to go the opposite direction. We are going to do the opposite. We're not going to allow this individualism to take over the world. We're going to go. Everybody has to think the same. Everybody has to speak the same. Everybody has to do the same thing. And if you don't, you're an enemy of the state. You are a problem. You've got to conform. You've got, we'll censor you. We'll ban you from Twitter and Facebook and, whatever. Everybody must follow a particular line. I heard Rabbi Mike saying this, and he said, "Do you ever hear a society like this?" The guy said, "North Korea." He says, "Boy, you have to go very far to find such a society." There are a lot of Orthodox societies that follow this too. This is a struggle that you see in every community. How much freedom, how much individuality, how much you're allowed to question what the doctrine and what we do here is. How much freedom you have. So their approach was everybody has to be the same. We're all working together. Individuality is nothing. It was the ultimate Marxist, Leninist, Trotskyist, communist society. And they got it. Those were all Jews, by the way, in some ways or other, I heard, that Marx was definitely, Trotsky was certainly, and even Lenin, they say that maybe his father's side or something like that was Jewish. Stalin was a beast and an animal. He was not Jewish at all. We don't take any credit for him. Huh. The others, and there were a lot of Jews who got very involved in this, as you know. There's a commentator called the Netziv. He was the Rosh Yeshiva of the big yeshiva in Volozhin. And he wrote a whole, lived in the late 1800s, and he wrote a whole manifesto about this idea because he knew that these ideas were very, very appealing in the late 1800s. If you were Jewish and you were a 19-year-old guy and you were very idealistic, it sounded like a very good idea. And many, many Jews became the leaders of that particular movement because it was a very appealing idea that there'd be no more wars. Everything is based on economics. And if we just equalize everything equally for everybody, affirmative action in the extreme. Excuse me. I'm not going to be able to talk too much here, I guess, tonight. Then that's what they wanted to do. Okay, but does that mean that God has to destroy it? So here's what the interesting thing that the Alter Rebbe pointed out. He said, there is a power, unity, in the way that God set up the universe. That unity taps into a certain level of the reality of the universe in such a way that's not going to help me.
No?
No.
Okay.
Water doesn't help me. I'm glad that I have productive coughs. Let's put it that way. Better than a dry cough, right? Those are painful. All right, I'm digressing.
Refuah Shlema.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I feel pretty good. Just so God gave a certain power to unity. True unity. There are two. True unity is that every piece of the human body, each one supplements and helps each other, and that kind of unity can only come about when you recognize there's something higher than our individuality that all holds us together as one. And and when you are united in that way, then you can really have both both values. You can have diversity and you can have unity at the same time. This may be a little hard to swallow. I'll try and make it simple. The Medrash Tanhuma, when it discusses this whole issue, says that the problem of the generation of it's called the generation of dispersion, Dor Haflaga, generation of Bavel, their problem can be summarized in one Jewish concept called Eruv. Eruv, what's an Eruv? So an Eruv is that normally a person is allowed to carry in their house. The rabbis instituted that if many houses all open into one courtyard on Shabbos and all the people are carrying from one inside that courtyard, normally that courtyard would just be considered, because it's a wall around, it would be considered just part of one big large community. But they were afraid, because there are many individual houses and they all mix in, and all the kids are mixed up in the big courtyard and they're playing with each other and everything else, that it will be considered that people will forget the whole idea of that there's the distinction between an individual domain and a public domain. So they said you can't carry in that area unless you make an eruv, which means that everybody has to contribute some bread to one house. They all put it in that one house, and that house that becomes like a communal Eidah house. They don't have to necessarily go there, but it's at least symbolic. And that is called an eruv. They make a fence around the community, and then they're all allowed to carry with on Shabbos within that area, because they all are, in fact, all part of one Shabbos table. They all have food deposited at that one house. And the rabbis, the Hillel and Shammai, discuss it, and they say, but what about the house where it's kept? Does it have to also contribute? And Shammai says yes, and Hillel says no. He says that's the answer. And what's this? How's this the answer? The answer is very interesting. The answer is there are two kinds of unity. There's the kind of unity that the Stalinists and the communists wanted to create, and there's the unity that what Judaism is looking for in terms of unity. The unity that they wanted to create was that we are all equal. We don't care about God. We do it for our own selfish purposes. We don't care. We're not nullified. We don't care about God. We don't care about higher purposes. We just want it because we want to be able to be powerful and mighty and strong among ourselves. And therefore, God will have to give it to us because there's nobody else to give to. And therefore, our unity will sort of force, in a mystical way, force God to give to everybody, because his hand will be forced. He set up the universe in a certain way that when everything is united together, the blessings flow to everybody equally. And so we will be able to take the energy of God without him wanting. The rabbis use a very extreme expression for this. It's sort of like how a person sometimes, steals from another person intimacy because the person didn't want it, but you're sort of forcing their hand behind their back by sneaking and looking and peeping Tom or whatever, and you're having intimacy with a person without wanting it. God would sort of say before his hand forced. So that is not true unity, and that God said that can't continue. What is true unity is the kind in the Eruv. The Eruv is we are all individuals, we all have our own houses, we all have unique traits, and we all work very hard on improving ourselves. It's not like everybody can just get from the government equally without everybody working on themselves. Everybody has to put in the maximum themselves. Everybody has to work on themselves in their own unique way. Everybody has to be a receive on the merit of his own work. But on the other hand, we all are united because we all are understand that we are interdependent and contributing to each other. And that can only come when you realize that there's a higher level of force, that you realize that, you know what, we can be different, but our differences actually help bring us together and bring us unity. Not a unity that we all have to be the same, but rather a unity which embraces diversity because God likes diversity. He likes different people. He likes different traits. He likes us with all our different kinds of problems. And he likes us with each of our unique challenges in life. And so we're not necessarily all have the same success or the same results or the payoffs or everything. We all help each other to get through this, to help each other in life. And that kind of unity is a higher level of unity. That's the kind of unity that God blesses. And that is the unity of the Eruv, because everybody gave bread, but not the person who actually lived in the house, because he just contributed the house. So that means everybody did something different, but they all nevertheless are considered united in one thing. And so the halacha is sort of intimating that you can be different, you can have different skills and different ways you contribute, and yet there can still be a unity among all people. And that's these two levels, these two approaches are what's going to set the stage for what we're going to learn about then in the coming weeks with Avraham Avinu. You know that there is a that you know that the world, if it goes to either extreme individuality with nobody caring about each other, and there's no community and there's no sharing and there's no helping with each other, or a unity that just says superficially, we're just going to look all the same, we're all going to be this, I'll explain it this way. I don't know, I used to read a lot of science fiction, and there was a science fiction writer I liked a lot. His name was Kurt Vonnegut. He wrote a book of short stories. One of them I still remember very clearly. And so he writes about a certain society where they were upset with everybody having different levels of beauty and strength and intelligence and everything else. So they decided to solve the world's problems by having a handicapper general who would give each kind of person a certain level of handicap so that they would all be equal. So people who were too strong had to wear weights along them. People who were too beautiful had to have masks. People who sung too well had to have voice disguisers, and each one was given a different handicap, and so forth. So they were all leveled out to exactly the same amount. And that was the society, and they were just this young couple, and they were in love with each other. And in truth, they were both like prince and princess. They were beautiful and strong and talented and dancers and anyway, that was this. They fell in love with each other, and there was a big problem with this because this was not anyway. That was this short story. So yeah, forcing conformity, forcing unity is not a good way. And so what we're going to do is now we're going to bring Avraham onto the stage. And we're going to have a unique kind of people out there who is different than everybody else and doesn't fit in with everybody else and is stands apart from everyone else, but nevertheless whose mission is ultimately to bring the world to the level of realizing its diversity and the power of diversity. The power of diversity is actually not a force to push us apart and to separate each other, but rather a way to actually bring the ultimate unity, which can only be a unity that embraces also diversity. And on that, I think I'll turn over the mic to my wife. Hopefully she'll have something interesting to say. I don't know, maybe on a little less philosophical level. But,
Feel better. Feel better.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good to see everybody. Very nice to see everybody. So I'm gonna keep it short tonight. It's gonna be a short class, I guess. And does anybody have anything to say before I begin?
Refuah Shlema, how are you feeling?
Um, thank God. Thank God. It's I like as you know, I got COVID a week ago, and it's wildly milder than the last time, thank God. So I still have residue. I went back to work today, but I still have residue, and I self-medicated. I should ask Sari about it. I self-medicated. I just figured out one of my problems, and I'm keeping it short tonight because I realized that I was losing my voice a little bit, so I don't want to. I can't endanger teaching at school. So I have a fantastic story, but I think I'm going to hold it for next week, and I'll explain why. So anyway, oh, here it is.
I
So
just sent you something. I just want to a WhatsApp, like a little short clip. Like I want you to look at it. It's 1 minute. Not now. I'm
okay,
just
I will.
telling you.
I will. Oh yeah, I can see I got skinny. I lost weight because
Oh.
there was 24 hours that I could not eat or drink even. That was the first 24 hours. And after the first 24 hours, everything was much different. So anyway, was it this past Shabbos? Yeah, this past Shabbos. Um, uh, we just finished Noah. In English, he's called Noah. We just finished the parsha of Noah, and the Rebbe Lubavitcher. Let me start out the way I always start out, which is that we're in a remarkable time. We are in the time of the unfolding of the redemption of the Jewish people in the entire world. And how do I know that? I only know that because um, a person that I know never to have been wrong said so. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe made many unbelievable predictions, and they all came true. So this one also has to come true. And and the Rebbe explained along the way why he sees this, and so anyway, the second thing is that our souls were meant to be in this time. We were handpicked to be in this time. We were given everything we need to navigate this time. We were given Torah, which is an incredible guidebook for every single part of life, and we were given the mitzvahs, which are they transform the individual and they transform the world. As I've said before, when I started keeping Torah and mitzvahs, I lived in Key West, Florida. I was the only person on the island that was even vaguely dreaming about doing these things. And it made me feel so magnificent that I used to stand on my wraparound porch that overlooked the gorgeous ocean. And I would sing to Hashem, "You make me feel like a natural woman," because I felt like I never felt in my life, and that's the power of mitzvahs. So not just learning, but doing, actually doing those things that you would never, if you were to make a religion, you would never make them up. But they are they defy human logic, and they are powerful. So the last thing is that what we're doing tonight actively advances the cause of the redemption. And so anyway, in the Sikha, the talk that the Rebbe delivered in 1991 on this topic, on the topic of Noah, he ended it in a very, very unusual way. The Rebbe started shouting at the end of the Sikha, Hashem Hu HaElokim. He did it 7 times. Anybody know when we do that? When do we shout Hashem Hu HaElokim? When do we do it? 7 times.
Sarah?
No. We do it on Yom Kippur, the closing moments of Yom Kippur.
Oh.
The closing moments of Yom Kippur, the sealing of the Ne'ilah service, the 5th service, the unique service of Yom Kippur at the end of the day. We shout Hashem Hu HaElokim. That means I'll explain in a minute. Then we say Baruch Hashem Kavod Malchuso Le'olam Va'ed 3 times, and then we say Shema Yisrael once. And so the whole purpose of this strange thing that we yell out, Hashem is, Hashem, that means the name that's spelled Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. That represents God's power. It represents many things, but one thing it represents is God's power of mercy. And the other one, Elo, that ends with the sound him, that expression is very strongly associated with God's attribute of justice and judgment. So when we are shouting Hashem, Hu Elohim, Hashem, He is the one. He's the, all that difficult stuff that happens, all that stuff that you think happens from Elohim. Guess what? Hashem Hu Elohim. God, it's one. God is the God of mercy. Is the one who's doing all this stuff. Elohim is sort of almost like clothing for the God of mercy. And so we shout 7 times all that stuff that we think is, oh, I can't wait for it to go away. Guess what? That's coming. Everything in my life that I want to do away with. I want it to be done, finished, gone. That's from the God of mercy. And at the end of Yom Kippur, we try and drill that concept into our minds. So too, at the end of the Parsha of Noach, the Rebbe shouted the whole Yom Kippur, the end of that dramatic ending of Yom Kippur, he shouted it again. And truly that's what's going to be in the redemption. In the redemption, we're going to see how it was all the God of love, how it was all the God who loves us far more than we love ourselves, and far more than our mothers love us, far more than we could ever imagine being loved. And all this came from love. All this stuff comes from love. So I remember before candlelighting on this Friday, I first of all, it was a very kind week. I got COVID. I had a hint of COVID on Sunday. Monday was, wow, one day, one big wacko day. But then Tuesday, I woke up and what's this? I don't feel so bad at all. Wednesday, what's this? I don't feel so bad at all. So I still have congestion, which you can hear, and I still need more sleep. So it's not gone, but it's COVID compared to what it was last year. This is not the same creature. So is it?
Well, it might be, but you might have different immunity to it.
It could be, or it could be a different variant, or I really don't know. I'm not an expert in these things. But anyway, so I was sailing through the week. First of all, I have to be off of school. You're not allowed, CDC says the first 5 days you have to isolate. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm home. And the only day that was stressful was Friday. Friday, my husband woke up with COVID, and it was a little stressful for me because we didn't know what he had, and it sounded logical that it was COVID, but a person, in my experience with COVID, a person does not test positive on the first day. It's almost useless to test them on the first day that they have symptoms. You have to wait until the second day or so. So anyway, we didn't even bother testing him, and it was a little stressful to me because what if he had picked up? Here I am, I have compromised immunity, I'm sick, and he might have an entirely different thing, and I'm planning on going back to school the next Monday, and all my plans might be down the drain. So that was a little stressful. Then I also found out that I might have given COVID to somebody that I would absolutely never want, an 80 or 81-year-old woman that I never would want to give COVID to. That was stressful for me also. And I woke up at 6 a.m. I had found out the night before about that. And I woke up at 6 a.m. determined to make her chicken soup, make her fresh chicken, make her, and these were things were different from what I was making for Yaskell Shimon and me. I already had soup. I already had different things, but no, I wanted her to have, hot chicken soup and all this kind of stuff. Um, and oh, I don't know how I'll tell the story, but so anyway, I asked somebody to take I could no longer, I couldn't deliver the food because I'm in isolation. Yaskell Shimon is in probable isolation. He can't deliver the food. I asked another friend, and it was not convenient. And then I had a brainstorm of somebody I would ask, and I asked the person, and the person agreed. And I said the food's gonna be ready like by 1 o'clock at the latest, maybe. And I called the person at 12 to say the food's ready. And so and and hours rolled by, and I was so busy I wasn't really thinking about it. All of a sudden, it's almost Shabbos, and my food that I had spent hours making, that not just because I spent hours making it, but because I really wanted the person to have this hot food, this 81-year-old with COVID. I really wanted her to have it. It's still in my house, and maybe she's not going to get it for Shabbos, and certainly I don't know if she's going to have time to warm it, to heat it up with cold chicken soup for Shabbos. Not what I dreamed of. So anyway, my stress shot up, and and you have to know that I have to know that people have their plans. The food got there, and the food got there in time. It just wasn't my scenario that I envisioned, and that was stressful. So then when I got to candlelighting, when I ran to candlelighting, I started lighting candles, and I realized, Hashem, that Yaskell Shimon has this who knows what. It's from you. And I started shouting, Hashem, hu ha-Elokim, that the food, that I had the whole crisis with the food being delivered. That's from you, Hashem. It's from you. Who else is it from? It's only from you. Hashem, hu ha-Elokim. If it's from you, it's good. And I think I went through 8 things that day. I was just shouting, Hashem, hu ha-Elokim. You're the one. You're the author. And if it's from you, it's good. So that's what that's what the geula is going to be like. Every single thing we're going to look at, we're going to say, wow. But we're going to see even more clearly than I saw on Friday. We're going to see how all of them were kind, and it's going to blow our sock. It's going to blow our brains, and it's going to be so amazing, so radically amazing. So as I said, I prepared a story, but I'm going to tell the story next week. It's about kids, and earlier when I read the story, I think I burst into tears at least 4 times, and right before I got COVID, like the day before my first symptoms started, I didn't cry. I didn't cry from sadness. I cried from being moved, and I was in shul, and I was moved by everything. It could be because I already had COVID and I didn't know it, and my system was softened or something like that. But it could be, I don't know. I don't know. People were contributing so generously in shul, and I was, it's so beautiful. The next thing that happened, it's so beautiful. So anyway, I want to tell the story, and I don't want to cry. And so what did I do today? I looked up on the internet how to not cry, and I have a whole list of tools for myself, like little things. You push your tongue to the roof of your mouth, and it can help you stop crying. It's so funny. Anyway, so look, I want you to look forward to it next week. It's a very good story, and with God's help, I won't cry once. So anyway, meanwhile, I want to wish you all a very good week, and
You as well, my dear.
and thank you for coming, and may everyone have a healthy. And I'm going to turn it off. And Sarah, you're going to stay on. I'm going to tell you what I did medically. Okay. So everybody should have a wonderful week. And I look forward to speaking to you next week.
Thank you, my dear.